for launch today. Still waiting on confirmation from SpaceX or any visual confirmation in our view that fueling did begin. Now T-minus 26 minutes and 35 seconds. We are seeing some signs of venting out at Launch Complex 39A. So it looks promising for a liftoff at 9:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, SpaceX's countdown net is currently silent. We're not hearing anything on the loop that SpaceX provides us to listen in on the status of the countdown. So we're not sure if that's a technical issue on the public relations front from SpaceX, or if there's any issue with the countdown. However, we are seeing signs that fueling did begin, so we are optimistic that launch is remaining on schedule for 9:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 14:25 UTC, 25 minutes and 48 seconds from now. Now T-minus 21 minutes and 30 seconds and counting. Today's mission is designated Starlink 4-9. It's carrying 47 Starlink internet satellites into orbit. This will be the 143rd launch of a Falcon 9 rocket since the rocket's first mission back in June of 2010. It'll be the 151st flight overall of SpaceX's rocket family since our Falcon rocket family since 2006, including the Falcon 1, Falcon 9, and Falcon Heavy variants. This particular booster is booster number 1060. It's the 11th flight of this booster. This mission is set to go from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. It'll be the 45th SpaceX launch from Launch Complex 39A. It's the 39th dedicated Falcon 9 launch for the Starlink program and the 9th SpaceX mission so far this year. It's the 10th overall launch from Cape Canaveral or Kennedy Space Center in 2022, including launches by SpaceX, United Launch Alliance, and Astra. Now T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. We're now seeing the venting from the strongback, the purge of the liquid oxygen lines, and chill down of those lines that lead up to the second stage now underway. That is in preparation for loading of liquid oxygen, chilled several hundred degrees below zero, into stage 2, beginning at T-minus 16 minutes. At this point in the countdown, the second stage should be fully loaded with kerosene fuel. Kerosene and liquid oxygen continue flowing into the first stage of the Falcon 9 out at Pad 39A at this time. This is an indication and confirmation, though, that launch remains scheduled for 9:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 14:25 UTC, with the Starlink 4-9 mission. As you can see, it is rather hazy this morning here on the Space Coast of Florida. That's not a weather concern for launch. However, it does obscure somewhat our a view of the pad. Now 19 minutes to go until launch of the Falcon 9 from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Now T-minus 15 minutes. At this time, liquid oxygen should be flowing into stage 2 of the Falcon 9 rocket. We haven't received any updates from SpaceX yet on the progress of the countdown. No audio from the launch team available at this moment. However, all indications are that the countdown is on schedule for 9:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 14:25 UTC. And if that's the case, liquid oxygen should be flowing into the stage 2 of the Falcon 9 launch vehicle at this time. This mission, again, is carrying 47 internet satellites into orbit to join SpaceX's Starlink internet network. In the last few days, the Starlink network has found new use in Ukraine. Elon Musk announced back on February 26th that the Starlink service was now active in that country, following a request from the country's vice prime minister asking for more Starlink internet antennas and terminals for the Ukrainian people amid Russia's invasion of the country. And just 2 days after the Vice Prime Minister Fedorov requested those Starlink terminals, they did arrive. He tweeted this picture thanking Elon Musk for the delivery of the Starlink terminals in a truck. A picture here showing those terminals as they are shipped in boxes. And just yesterday he tweeted again thanking SpaceX and Elon Musk, saying SpaceX keeps our cities connected and emergency services saving lives. And with Russian attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure, he is now requesting and asking for ideas on power generation capability to keep these Starlink terminals active and other services available for Ukrainian citizens. So there is an example of the Starlink internet network in action. Back in January, after the eruption of a volcano in Tonga, SpaceX also restored internet service to that island nation following that eruption via the Starlink space-based internet network. SpaceX says the Starlink network is best suited for connecting customers and consumers in hard-to-reach areas, such as islands or on ships at sea or in rural areas. SpaceX also is testing the Starlink internet network on aircraft in partnership with the U.S. military. Now, T-minus 12 minutes and 13 seconds until today's mission. This is the 39th dedicated launch for the Starlink network since 2019. Now T-minus 10 minutes. 10 minutes until launch of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket from here at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Now approaching 8 minutes until liftoff. At T-minus 7 minutes, the chill-down process will begin on the Falcon 9 rocket. This involves flowing small amounts of liquid oxygen through the first stage engine plumbing, conditioning some of those components for the rapid flow of liquid oxygen during flight. This booster is now T-minus 7 minutes and 10 seconds. That chill down will begin momentarily to begin thermally conditioning those 9 Merlin power plants on the first stage for flight. T-minus 7 minutes and counting. This mission is flying on a booster number 1060 in SpaceX's fleet. This will be making its 11th trip to space today following 10 previous missions. It debuted on the Space Force's GPS 3-3 mission back on June 30th of 2020. And since then, it's flown with the Turksat 5A communications satellite, as well as the Transporter 2 small satellite rideshare mission. As well as 6 previous flights with Starlink internet satellites. This will be its 11th flight overall, and it'll be targeting a landing on SpaceX's drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. This mission will be heading southeast from Kennedy Space Center over the Atlantic Ocean. SpaceX's drone ship, just read the instructions, is parked around 400 miles downrange off the coast of the Bahamas. In this map, the red line shows the trajectory of the first stage booster as it heads downrange toward the landing site. The green line denotes where the second stage will be flying. It will make a slight right-hand turn using its thrust vector steering system to line up with the planned orbital plane for today's mission at an inclination of 53.2 degrees. That dogleg maneuver, so-called, is necessary to ensure the rocket is not going to be flying over any populated areas, won't be flying over any of the islands of the Bahamas during the first few minutes of the flight, and allows the drone ship to be parked in the open ocean for landing of that first stage booster. T-minus 5 minutes and counting. It'll take about an hour and 5 minutes for the Falcon 9 to deliver these 47 Starlink satellites into orbit. Landing of the first stage on the booster is planned, or landing of the first stage on the drone ship rather is planned nearly 9 minutes into the flight. The second stage will perform 2 burns to place these Starlink satellites into orbit nearly 200 miles above Earth, setting the stage for separation of those satellites at T+1 hour and 5 minutes. 4.5 minutes until liftoff. In the last few minutes, the guidance system of the Falcon 9 has been configured for flight. Momentarily, we should see the strongback structure on the right side of the Falcon 9 in this view retract to a position about 1.5 degrees from the rocket. That's the position that the strongback will be in for the remainder of the countdown. And then at liftoff, that structure will begin a rapid retract maneuver to clear out of the way for the Falcon 9 to vertically climb away from pad 39A. T-minus 4 minutes and counting. The Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 46,000 gallons of kerosene fuel. Liquid oxygen continues flowing into the rocket for the next couple of minutes. Now less than 2 minutes to go until liftoff.
Shortly after LOX loading completes on the second stage, we will also see venting from the
ground gas closeouts.
Less than 90 seconds to go. The Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 1.2 or about 1 million pounds of propellant. The entire rocket weighs 1.2 million pounds. A fully fueled Falcon 9 now 60 seconds from launch from Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Now 25 seconds.
T-minus 30 seconds.
The
LD,
propellant tanks
launch.
are being pressurized for flight at this time. T-minus 20 seconds. T-minus 10, 9,
T-minus 15
8,
seconds.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
10,
1.
9,
Ignition.
7,
And liftoff
6,
of SpaceX's
5,
Falcon 9
4,
rocket.
3,
47
2,
more Starlink internet
1,
satellites
0.
on the way to
Ignition
orbit from Kennedy Space
and
Center in
liftoff.
Florida.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Falcon 9 is now heading downrange. The rumble from those 9 Merlin engines now making its way across the Space Center, heading downrange to the southeast. 1.7 million pounds of thrust from those 9 Merlin engines.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Falcon 9 is supersonic. Max Q.
T plus 1 minute 30 seconds. Falcon 9 is now supersonic, now climbing into the stratosphere. 9 Merlin engines still firing to power this rocket into orbit today. T plus 1 minute 55 seconds, now about 30 seconds away from main engine cutoff. The first stage will be separating a few seconds later, and the second stage's engine will then ignite to continue the acceleration into orbit with these 47 Starlink internet satellites. You can see the plume from those nine engines now expanding as the rocket is now in the rarefied layers of the upper atmosphere, standing by for MECO, or main engine cutoff. Everything looking good. There's main engine cutoff. And with their stage separation and ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine, that single Merlin engine now firing, producing more than 200,000 pounds of thrust, burning liquid oxygen and kerosene. This burn will last around 6 minutes to place the 47 Starlink internet satellites into a parking orbit. Now we're switching to SpaceX's onboard camera view showing stage separation moments ago. This feed is on a bit of a delay, a few seconds of a delay. There's payload fairing separation. On the left side of the screen, you can see the view from the first stage, extending those aerodynamic grid fins. Those titanium fins will help steer and stabilize the rocket during re-entry back into the atmosphere. On the right, the Merlin vacuum engine firing, glowing red hot, producing a little over 200,000 pounds of thrust during the 6-minute orbital insertion burn. Those payload fairing halves will be recovered from the sea today after descending under parachute. SpaceX's recovery ship named Bob is located in the Atlantic Ocean near the Bahamas. And of course, the drone ship Just Read the Instructions is also downrange for landing of that first stage. A downrange tracking station in Bermuda is now receiving telemetry from the Falcon 9 as it makes its way farther out into the Atlantic Ocean, heading southeast toward the Bahamas. It'll be flying just north of the northernmost Bahama Islands. We're now going to bring up audio from SpaceX's webcast for the remainder of this first stage descent and second stage orbit insertion burn to bring you the latest updates on the progress of the Falcon 9 into orbit as it climbs into space. We'll be back after first stage landing with another update.
Named Just Read the Instructions, targeting its 11th landing. On the right-hand side of your screen is the second stage, carrying 47 Starlink satellites into an intended drop-off orbit. Now, those Merlin engines on the stages, on the first stage, are actually optimized for sea level. They achieve about 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent, so during this portion of the mission, and now for descent, a similar amount of thrust. The Merlin vacuum engine is optimized for 220,500 pounds of thrust, and that's because the nozzle is significantly larger, allowing us to get more force out of the gases from combustion. You can see a couple of the grid fins on the Falcon 9's first stage on the left-hand side of your screen. Those hypersonic grid fins are near the top of the first stage. And as we get back into the Earth's atmosphere, the first stage only uses those grid fins to steer back towards the drone ship. While we're in the less dense parts of the Earth's atmosphere, you can see some periodic gas thrusters. That's from nitrogen gas.
Both vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
And that's orienting the vehicle as we get prepared for the entry burn start, which is coming up about 20 or so seconds from now. During entry burn, we'll ignite 3 of the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage to slow down the vehicle as we start to hit the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Stage 1, entry burn, startup.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
So confirmation of entry burn startup.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
This burn lasting just about 20 seconds. You can see rapidly reducing the velocity of the first stage.
Stage 1, entry burn, shutdown.
So confirmation of shutdown of the entry burn. From here, the grid fins are going to play a more and more important role as we enter into the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere. As we flew through the exhaust plume from that entry burn, we actually deposited a layer of soot on the rocket. If you've followed our missions before, you know that soot on a first stage indicates that we've flown it before. That actually comes from the Rocket Propellant 1 kerosene combustion from Falcon 9's propellants. Rocket Propellant 1 is a carbon-based propellant, so as we burn it, it generates a little bit of soot, which is deposited onto the vehicle. Now, coming up about 20 seconds from now, we'll have landing burn on the first stage. We may not have video confirmation of that part of the mission, so I'll try to give callouts if I can hear them on the nets. And simultaneously, so there's callout there for the landing burn start. Simultaneously, during the landing burn, the landing legs will deploy on the first stage for hopefully a soft touchdown, and then the second stage, which we have on our screen, should also complete its first burn.
Stage 1, landing leg deploy.
So 4 landing legs deployed on the first stage, confirmed by the ground control team.
Stage 1, landing confirmed.
And confirmation, 11th successful landing of that first stage.
Pico.
26th overall landing on Just Read the Instructions. There you can see a shot there. We also had a call out.
Nominal orbit insertion.
2 callouts there on the second stage, confirmation of second engine cutoff and a nominal orbit, which means those Starlink satellites are right where they want to be for the upcoming payload deployment. Now, those 47 Starlink satellites are scheduled to be deployed about an hour from now. However, we won't have live audio or visual coverage of the payload deployment due to a lack of ground station coverage at the scheduled time. We will regain signal with our ground station at about T plus 1 hour and 19 minutes. So for those of you interested, we'll keep the audio-only countdown nets up on our YouTube channel, and we'll confirm successful payload deployment on our social media channels.
SpaceX is now concluding its live webcast coverage. As you saw, the first stage has arrived on the deck of the drone ship. Just read the instructions: in the Atlantic Ocean, northeast of the Bahamas. That drone ship located around 400 miles or 650 kilometers southeast of Cape Canaveral. This was the 11th flight to space for this particular booster, booster number 1060. The second stage engine also cut off around the same time as first stage landing. The second stage and 47 Starlink satellites now flying over the Caribbean Sea, heading out over South America in a few minutes, heading southeast, now coasting in orbit, ready for a flight halfway around the world before reigniting its engine at T plus 55 minutes for a very brief 1-second burn to circularize the orbit at an altitude of nearly 200 miles. That will set the stage for deployment of the 47 Starlink satellites at T plus 1 hour and 5 minutes or so. SpaceX won't have any live telemetry coverage during that event, so confirmation of that payload deployment milestone is expected around T plus 1 hour and 19 minutes. That is going to be around 10:44 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 15:44 UTC. SpaceX will share that news via social media, and SpaceX is also keeping its mission audio line active throughout the next hour or so to follow the animation of where the Falcon upper stage is located, as well as the expected verbal call out from SpaceX's launch team once they receive data confirming that the separation did occur. Again, that data will come after the fact, around 15 minutes or so after separation, once the Falcon 9 is back in range of a ground station.